From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Barris here on a Monday. Still trying to clear the cobwebs after watching the Super Bowl last night. I stayed up later than I should have. Yes, I did. But I'm here, and I'm rocking and rolling because I'm enthused that Peyton Manning is world champion, and good for him. Good for him. It was a fun game to watch, and we had it here on CBS. And so hopefully a lot of folks, went to bed and left the TV on CBS, and they got up this morning and watched us, and now they're over here with us on the Plus. So we will get to the show, and it's a good topic this morning. We'll get the phone lines going. We're talking elder law, estate planning, powers of attorney, all kinds of stuff like that with our regular guest, and he's a good chum. His name's Tim Takacs, elder law attorney extraordinaire.
Good
morning to you, sir.
Yeah, so you stayed up late till 9 last night, huh?
That's late for me.
I guess
but
it is.
But you know,
yeah.
the game, yeah. I mean, I had to stick around and watch some of the after stuff. The game did end.
Yes, it did.
A little after 9 or so,
did.
right? Which wasn't bad. But were you rooting for the Broncos?
Oh, I don't.
You didn't really care one way or the other.
I'm a Titans fan.
Me
so.
too. But I just like the Peyton Manning, and I know for some reason there's some people who didn't want Peyton to win, which I understand.
I mean,
but,
I certainly, you want to see a good game. You want to see the players do well. You want to see, nobody get hurt, all those sorts of things.
Super Bowls rarely live up to the hype. And how can it after 2 weeks of it all? But it's over.
Yeah.
Football season comes to an end.
And then another 6-7 months before we start up again.
Back at it again.
We can't wait.
And the Titans are going to be there next year.
Yes, exactly.
I can dream, can't I?
Yes.
All right. The number's up on the screen, 737-7587. But maybe, as always, I like to let you remind folks what type of questions you are equipped to answer as an elder law attorney. What is it you work with?
You mentioned about estate planning and whatnot, but I've often say is that estate planning deals with dead people pretty much. Okay, what happens to your money and property when you die? But we're much more concerned about what happens to people while they're alive, our older clients, how they're going to get the care that they need, how they're going to pay for it, how are decisions going to be made for them, what happens if they can't live in the house anymore, what are their options, should they set up a trust, do they have dependents, is there a disabled or an incapacitated spouse, do you have if you're, maybe you're watching the show and you're 80 years old and you're taking care of your 83-year-old spouse. Wow. What do you have to worry about then? What are your options? How can you make sure that your loved one is taken care of as well as you are going to be taken care of? So all of that is the things that we do as a part of an elder law practice.
Yeah, and Tim was one of the visionaries early on, recognizing that this was going to be a growing field with all the baby boomers aging. And remember, we're talking not just this morning about those of you who are of age now, if you're a senior citizen looking at it, but it also affects the younger folk, like myself, who's dealing with my folks who have finally agreed to move to be closer to my brother. And I was asking him just some basics about, and they don't live around here, they're out in the West, but about how to go about setting up power of attorney. Our hope, Tim, is to get my folks to get out of the house. My brother's going to drive over there, get them in the van, and then drive them back to where he lives in Boise, all right?
Right.
We want them to have some things packed up and everything else, and then I want to swoop in, get the house staged, cleaned up, whatever, and put it on the market, and we'll leave, and then have this realtor we know sell the house. So,
and that's a good plan.
Okay, you think that's as opposed to leaving my folks where they're sure it's easier to sell it when they're gone. Let's get it cleaned up.
Right, and the idea there is that they make a decision. You and your brother support their, your parents' decision. That your mom and dad are they're concerned about their boys. I often say is that to Barbara Bush, W is still her little boy. And so your mom and dad are saying, well, we don't want to spend everything we have. They worry about how much it's going to cost because they know that the money's not coming in anymore and it's now going out. And they don't see a future that without them in it. So they're thinking, well, the money's going to go, that's going to go. And as we were chatting just before we went off the air, is that a lot of this becomes you and your brother being supportive for your mom and dad, recognizing that they have fears and anxieties about the future.
It's really, frankly, Tim, it's not so much they're worried about the money and worried about us. Their more concern is, I know they've agreed to do this, and I know a lot of you may have had this situation where you keep urging your parents to maybe seek help, and they just don't want to. They want to be independent, which I respect.
Yeah.
But I think we finally got them both to agree. But I know in my heart that when the time comes, likely this spring, that we fly out there, and it is a pain. They're not next door like a lot of folks with their family nearby. They're in Oregon. We fly out there, and my brother's meeting them from Boise, and we're going to get them in the van to go, that they are going to balk at that moment. We're going to show up, and they're going to go, we just decided we don't want to go.
Right.
So if I show up, and they say this to us after everything's all lined up, we have an apartment waiting for them, we're ready to put their house on the market, some things are packed out, and they go, no, we just decided we cannot bring ourselves to leave this home, because that's where they're most secure, even though they know they can no longer handle it.
Right.
But irrationally, they're just going to say, we're not going.
Right.
So I'm looking at them, and they're like, we're here, Mom, we're ready. They're ready to go. Let's have a little party, and then you guys take off. Nope, we're not going. What do I do? What do you do?
Okay, so when is your plane leaving?
Do you mean to
return to Nashville?
Return probably in a couple of days. That was the plan.
You say, all right, we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Okay.
You know, you and your brother are going to go out someplace, and you know, and because you don't look for trouble if it's you know, but at the same time, you know, recognize that, you know, your mom and dad knowing that you're going to be there for 2 days, you know, that you're planning on going there, and you are coming back to Nashville in 2 days later, regardless of what happens.
Yeah, right.
You know, so don't, you know, so if they say, you know, I don't know if we're ready for this, you say, fine, well, you know, we'll be back here in the morning, or why don't we go out for dinner later today? So you all go out to dinner, and maybe if your mom and dad are interested in talking about it, fine. But a lot of that becomes, okay, what worries them? You know, what are the anxieties that they have about this move?
They just don't want to leave the place they've lived all these years. It's scary.
And that is absolutely, positively okay. You know, and they may decide that they're not going to move, and then you just say, fine, and you get in the...
But the reason they finally kind of agreed to do this, and again, I don't want to harp too much on my issues, we'll get to your phone calls, but it's a matter of, I think they finally, and we've been asking them to do this for years, came to the conclusion now that they are feeble enough now, and my dad recognized, they know in their hearts of hearts, they can't handle it anymore. They need help, they can't. But for whatever reason, then it becomes illogical, but they follow their emotion and just the gut feeling of, I can't leave this place, even though rationally they know they need to. And that's why they finally agreed. They finally know. Because to leave them and fly away is not the answer. Because if we do, I have no doubt in my mind, sometime in the next year, something very bad is going to happen. One of them's going to fall and break their neck. One's going to fall off the roof when they're trying to rake leaves off the roof. One's going to wreck their car. You know, it's funny. I actually, you know, had some neighbors complain to me about, they were concerned about my dad's driving. So I reported him to the DMV in Oregon. Okay, you can do this. There are, you can call and report and send the documentation with the driver's license number and everything, saying I have an older, you know, loved one who I don't think is a safe driver anymore. And they take note of it if they figure you're legit. And there was an officer that pulled him over at one point, and it flagged my note. And they forced him to go in and retest for another driving test. Because I couldn't live with myself if he hurt himself or someone else. And the dude passed. I was thinking, okay, because that would solve our problems if they yanked his license. But he went back down, retested, and passed.
So how did that happen?
And if my dad knew that I was the one that reported him, he'd be bummed. But he's not watching me in Oregon right now.
But the main thing I also think about is that you're not going to push your mom and dad to go.
So I mean, we can't force them to if they don't want to go.
You know, it's like I sometimes say to our clients and our families, as I say, you know, to Barbara Bush, W is still her little boy. You know, and W can go and tell his mom, you know, where to live and what to do. And you know, and that's kind of like you and your brother are pretty much in the same boat. You know, the unfortunate part is that, like you said, is that you hate to have to be in that situation of next year having to bail them out. You know, where you're getting calls from neighbors and going, you need to come here because your mom's in the hospital and your dad's wandering around the neighborhood. And, you know, and then now what do you do? And then you're in a crisis mode. But at the same time, remember that could happen. You know, and so that's when you and your brother need to have a plan, which is, okay, what if mom and dad don't move? Where are they going to move then if there is a crisis?
Oh, so, we'll have to cross that bridge.
You know, in other words, I mean, there's going to have to be a plan B. Great. We all want to live, you know, we want to be proactive, you know, and it's great that you and your brother are doing that. You know, you kind of have a plan that, you know, your mom and dad are going to be in Boise, you know, and you're going to be working on selling the house and whatever else, you know, and expect that plan is going to go the way it's supposed to go.
Okay, and we do, but now, all right, so to make it work, what about using deception? Now, these people are not Alzheimer's out there yet. They still have their marbles. All right, so what about using deception? If we said, okay, we're going to take you and you can spend a few weeks in Boise and see how you like it. If you want, you can come back. Well, the truth is we won't let them come back. Once they get there, that's all she wrote.
That's an option.
I mean, I hate the thought of doing that. I really do.
Yeah, that's one of the things, that's like high on my list of things that it's very difficult for children to do, is to lie to their parents.
I don't want to do that.
No, you don't. But you know what? What did you already just do?
Well, I already turned him in, but that wasn't a lie. I mean, that was, I mean, he doesn't know it.
He doesn't know it.
I turned him into the DMV.
Right.
And he passed. Good for him, I guess.
You know, and what you're doing there is like, so what are your motivations here?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
your motivations are good.
They are good. That's,
you know, and the main thing is like, you know, and we've talked a lot on this show for years about autonomy and about how seniors have the right to do what they want to do. But you know, their right to do what they want to do kind of ends when you're their safety net.
Yeah, that's right. And that's, okay, and we got to take a break on that note. Just so you know, I think what we're doing is the carrot on the stick. Instead of saying you have to go, it's not that. It's like, Raul, my brother, really wants you to come, and this is your chance to really spend time with your grandkids. Right. And that is something that really resonates with them, and I think that's hopefully what will carry us.
And they have a place to live, and help them make sure that they select their place that they want to live.
Yeah. So that's the plan. They should have means. They'll have the resources after we sell their home.
Right.
All right, so enough of that. Anyway, we'll talk more, and we'll take your phone calls. The number 737-7587. There's a lot of other aspects of things we can talk about. Tim is great at giving you ideas you didn't think about when you deal with some of these situations. So if you're on hold, stay where you are. We'll be back with your calls and more of our conversation with Tim Takacs right after this. Stay with us.